Hi everyone, I have finished watching Angel Season 1 over on my Patreon. They are full-length exclusives over there because I do not have the time in the day to edit 2 TV shows down for YouTube and also be able to balance the movies and music content that I want to keep up on this channel. But I thought it would be really fun and manageable for me to make a recap / episode ranking video at the end of any season of television I ever do exclusively over on my Patreon. I love recap videos on YouTube. I will watch them for shows that I've never ever seen in my life and never planned to watch. I'm not going that in depth on the recap portion of this video just because I know that you guys are probably watching this because you're watching my Buffy reactions. But I decided I wanted to go a little bit more in depth than just a synopsis when it comes to reviewing these episodes with you guys right now, strolling down memory lane, getting them into a tier list. So once I realized how I wanted to do this video, I actually ended up writing out a script. So I have my MacBook here, and my eyes might be going this way for a good portion of the video, but it's just the best way for me to get all of my thoughts out and make sure I say things correctly, because otherwise I'd be sitting here for 10 hours being like, wait, did anything specific happen in this specific episode that I want to make sure I mention and that has something to do with why I'm ranking it this way? I just wanted to make sure if there were any significant thoughts I had throughout my time watching Angel that I was able to relay them to you guys in this format. So that's what I did. It's only 43 pages long. I'm also thinking about getting into recap content in general. I don't know if you guys are aware of like the niche unhinged recap section of YouTube videos. This is kind of like a half in, half out version of that. Like I said, I'm not like telling you every little detail of what happened in these episodes because I know my audience and I know you don't probably need that. But I was thinking about maybe even doing this type of style of video for TV that I even watch on my own. Let me know if you would be up for that type of content from me, because I think I'm gonna do it. I think I'm gonna do it. But anyways, for today, we're focusing on Angel. Okay, so I just wanted to say before we get into it that I have enjoyed this show much more than I thought that I would. For a long time, I wasn't even planning to react to Angel on Patreon as those full-length exclusives, mostly because I didn't know if I was going to have the time to film and edit, and I actually ended up putting another project that I was going to do for Patreon to the side so that I could do this instead. But also, I was hesitant about it because Angel was not my favorite character in Buffy. So I was like, a whole show about Angel, I don't know if that would be up my alley. Like, I enjoyed what his character provided to the plot of Buffy, but like Angel the person was just not, I wasn't his biggest fan. But literally from episode 1, they did so good at fleshing his character out in his own show, and I realized, oh, okay, they can so easily sway me with this guy. Even in just that first episode, they were exploring his sense of humor in a way that they never had before, and they made it very clear that he had a lot of insecurities. I feel like in the show Angel, we are zoning in on the humanness of Angel, whereas in Buffy, he was very much broody vampire. Of course, it wasn't that much of a stock character, but when you compare to what he is in his own show, it's just like worlds of difference. I had a lot of top tier episodes in this season. There were a few episodes that weren't really my thing, but overall, especially with how season 1 ends, that cliffhanger, I'm very excited for season 2. Okay, so I made a tier list. And as you can see by the pictures, I literally just went through my Hulu page and took screenshots of each episode that I watched, because obviously I can't be Googling stuff. Top tier is called Slade for obvious reasons. Rewatch royalty means it didn't blow me like into an entirely new dimension like the Slade episodes did, but I'm really excited to get to watch them again. 5x5. If you get it, you get it. 5x5 to me means like, cool, okay, chill. Then we have Something's Missing, where it's like not a bad episode objectively in my mind, but it's more of like a personal thing where just something was missing for me. And then we have Not My Thing, which again is not really saying it's a bad episode, but it's just not my thing. So let's start with episode 1, City of Angels, our pilot episode. We are introduced to Angel in a way we've never seen him before. He's drunk. I didn't even know that he could get drunk. I don't know why I thought that vampires were immune. Maybe I've read that in other vampire literature. He's relatively new to Los Angeles. He's not doing well given the events of how he left Sunnydale. He's heartbroken. And even though he seems to be a bit off the deep end, he does take notice to a couple of guys taking a girl out of this bar that we're in. They're vampires. He is Batman. He's full on Batman in this show, and he goes out in the alley, takes care of the vampires, saves the girl, and we're like, okay, I see you, Angel. I see what this show is about. You're about to whip some ass. It also just proves his character. Like, even though he is stuck in his own world and he's sad and depressed about his own things, nothing is going to stop him from being a vigilante and always take justice into his own hands and do the right thing. Oh, we also meet Doyle right away in this episode, and I appreciate his character so much. I think he fits perfectly into the dynamic of the group. I was really confused at first when we first met him. I was like, who is this random person? I assumed they were like just part of the first episode and I'd never see them again. And then all of a sudden their name was in the credits and I was like, oh, okay, I should really remember this person's name. Doyle, got it. He's half human, half demon, which I found so interesting. Demons in general are much more interesting to me in Angel than they are in Buffy. I feel like they're just like more fleshed out, more morally gray. We like get to know a lot more demons that aren't all bad. Whereas I feel like in Buffy, we didn't really get that at this point. We got like vampires who weren't all bad, or really just Angel, I guess, technically. Oh, and Doyle drops the fact that the powers that be are the ones who give him these visions. And I'm not gonna lie, you guys. I'm not gonna lie. I thought that the powers that be and the oracles were the same thing. So we know what happens to the oracles in the season finale. I thought those were the powers that be. And I was shocked. I was like, how can they be murdered? But it's cleared up now. I understand they are not the same entity if they couldn't be, because it just wouldn't, it's not possible for, you can't kill the powers that be. I think they're just like kind of the supernatural gods in a way, like they're not, can they be physically manifested? I don't know. But anyways, yeah, Doyle gets visions from the powers that be. It shows like people who are in need of help, and he, I think, had a vision of Angel saying that he needed to go and like partner up with Angel. And so that's kind of the formula of the show. Doyle has these visions of people that need to be helped. Angel helps them. And thanks to the vision that Doyle has, we see a woman named Tina needs help, and we're led to a fancy LA party where we find Cordelia. I was really happy to see Cordelia. I was excited to see her in more of like a main character role. I guess she's technically a main character on Buffy, you know, her name's in the credits there, her name's in the credits here now, but because we only have like a 3-person cast, like main cast in this first season, she gets a lot more screen time. And I was here for that. She tells Angel that she's a hotshot actress, but actually she's struggling really bad. She's in a roach-infested apartment, and I think she hasn't even booked a commercial, maybe a really like low-budget commercial. And then as far as Tina goes, that girl we saw in the vision who needs help, she's been wrapped up in some trouble with a guy named Russell. He's a man with power and money who charms wannabe actresses with promises that he can help their career. But guess what? He's a vampire and he actually just lures them in to kill them. And why doesn't he get caught? Because he's very high profile. Why wouldn't a man like that get caught? It's because right away in this first episode, we are introduced to Wolfram and Hart as well, a law firm that specializes in demons. They cover up all the supernatural things happening in LA, and Russell's one of their clients, so they cover up all his murders for them, and they're really good at it. Wolfram and Hart is the major antagonist, like overarching the first season. And I was actually pretty frustrated and let down by them as an antagonist in this first season until the finale. And now I have a lot of hope. Anyways, Tina dies. Russell kills her. That was another thing where I was like, oh, damn, like people, it's so dark. Like the tone of the show is so much more dark than Buffy. I like the lightness of Buffy, but I like the darkness of Angel. Matches their characters as well. So it makes sense that their shows kind of take on the tone of the character. But now that Tina's dead, Russell decides that his next victim is going to be Cordelia. But Doyle and Angel save her, and that experience is kind of what brings those 3 main characters together. I thought that this was a really strong pilot, and I'm going to be putting this one in in 5x5. Episode 2 was titled Lonely Hearts. Why is my mouth already dry? I'm on episode 2 and I need a drink of water. Welcome to Angel Investigations. Cordelia specifically is ready to capitalize on Angel's do-gooder attitude. She's like, people would pay for this help, Angel. We need business cards. We need to charge for your services. Doyle admits to Angel that he's kind of into Cordelia. And I was like, of course we need a little side romance. Doyle gets a vision of some trouble going down in a nightclub. So much of the episode is set in this nightclub, and this is also where we meet Kate. She is one of the very few recurring characters of season 1, and she's one that I really enjoyed for most of the season. And then her character takes a turn, and right now with how we've left her at the end of the season, I'm very torn, and I have some hopeful predictions of what could become of her. But honestly, with how they've dealt with her character in this first season, I'm not even sure if I'm promised that she would be in the second season at all. We'll see. I don't know. She's a police officer. She's playing undercover in this episode, trying to catch a serial killer when we meet her. Angel and Kate hit it off right away. Actually, right away, there's like kind of a romantic chemistry between them, but nothing ever happens with that. I was really rooting for them for a second there. But it also makes sense that nothing would come from that because Angel's got this whole true happiness makes him soulless thing, so he's not going to date and risk finding true happiness in a person. But my favorite thing about this episode is 100% the demon, the monster of the week. The monster of the weeks in general on Angel are so creative, and I actually find myself really looking forward to them. This episode's demon is called a burrower demon. It has to establish some sort of connection with its victim before literally physically punching its little mini Demogorgon body into its victim and crawling up inside them and possessing them in that way. Obviously killing them in the process because of the violence of it all. It has been hopping bodies trying to find the best host body for itself, so all these murders, it looks like stab wounds to the chest. That's why Kate, she doesn't know about any of the supernatural stuff. She's just a regular police officer, and she thinks she's looking for a regular serial killer. But Angel catches on that there might be something more to it. By the end of the episode, Angel saves Kate from being its next victim, and then kills the demon, sets it on fire. I had a lot of fun with this episode. There were so many fun twists and reveals. It introduced Kate, it had a really cool villain, and it's the first seed planted of Angel Investigations, which is cute. So this one is also going to go in a 5x5, but I'm gonna put it above City of Angels. Episode 3 in the Dark. This is our first real crossover episode that brings the Buffy universe physically into the Angel universe. In the previous episode of Buffy, Spike is after an immortal ring. It's immortal specifically for vampires because it keeps them from being burnt in the sun so they can go out in daylight. Stakes don't kill them. Anything that is like kryptonite for a vampire, it's gold now. You're fine. But over on Buffy, Buffy stops Spike from getting it and then gives it to Oz because he has a gig out in LA and is like, hey, when you're driving out to LA to go on your little band gig, just give this ring to Angel because he really deserves it. So we get Oz in this episode. Very exciting. And we get Spike because he's not going to give up trying to track down that ring for himself. At one point, Spike does capture Angel, hires a professional sadist to torture Angel into telling him where the ring is, which sounds morbid, but it was so fun. There was something so entertaining and funny about anything Spike does is just funny to me. The torture guy was so cartoonishly creepy, and Spike was so over the top that it just made for a very entertaining scene. In the end, the sadist is a pedophile also, by the way. In the end, the literal pedophile sadist ends up getting the ring for himself, because I didn't mention he's a vampire too. Pedophile sadist vampire goes to the beach to creep on some kids, but Oz shows up just in time with the getaway car. We zoom off to the beach. Angel runs out of the truck into the sunlight. He catches fire, but he's running down the pier and he grabs this evil vampire, tackles him off the pier. They fall into the ocean. They get into the shade under the pier, fight it out. Angel manages to get the ring off of the guy's finger, pushes him out into the sunlight. He burns to death. Woohoo. And Angel has the ring. Honestly, I can't remember where Spike went in the midst of all this. I think he was just over it. There's a really cool moment where when he puts on the ring, he steps out into the sunlight and he just soaks in the sun for a minute. He's been in the dark for centuries. Imagine how good that sunlight feels. I feel like it's something we take for granted. It was really cool to see him be able to enjoy the sun for a moment. But in the end, true Angel style, he decides to destroy the ring because he believes that it's a bit of a cop-out if he wears this ring, because he thinks his true destiny is to be like a helper of night. You know, so many bad things go on at night. The demons and the vampires come out to play at night, a lot of them, and he is someone who can prevent that at night. So like, he just doesn't think that the ring would suffice for the greater good. This episode is going to be our first one put in rewatch royalty. I loved the reminder that Buffy and Angel are in the same universe. I mean, we know that. But when you see it in action, when you see those types of crossovers happen, it just helps to make it feel more real. I love Spike and Oz, so like, it was so cool to get them in this episode. The ring was such a cool concept, but Angel choosing to walk away from it was even cooler. He destroyed it, by the way, with a brick. He just smashed it with a brick, which like, I thought it would be harder to destroy a magic ring than that, but I guess that's all it took. Episode 4, I Fall to Pieces. This is another one where the monster of the week element, the antagonist of the episode, absolutely carries it, and I loved it. So there's this neurosurgeon guy who's stalking this poor woman. Her name's Melissa. He's clearly delusional. He thinks that they're engaged, but they only went on a date one time. She was actually a patient of his. I can't remember exactly what was going on up here, but he performed like brain surgery on her and then asked her out, and she kind of was like, she didn't even want to go out on that first date, but he just kind of saved her life with this brain surgery, so she just did it to be polite. And now suddenly he thinks they're engaged, and it's been like 8 months. I can't remember the specific time period, but several months of him thinking that they're together, and now they're engaged. And he always knows these really specific creepy things about her and her day-to-day life, so it seems like if you're not thinking on a supernatural level, you would think, is he bugging my apartment? Has he bugged my purse? How does he know these private things about me? But it turns out there is no hidden camera. He is capable of detaching his eyes out of his own sockets and sending them off wherever he wants to. And I thought that was all it was at first, which is creepy enough, but it turns out he can actually detach any part of his body and send it off wherever to. So his eyes have just been floating in this woman's orbit for the last 8 months. In the end of the episode, his hands and his teeth come out to play as well, in like the major climax where we're fighting him off. Seeing this man's set of teeth fly across the room, it was great. It was perfect. It was so weird, and I loved it. Also, Wolfram and Hart are mentioned again in this one. They represent this guy, this neurosurgeon stalker demon. This episode also marks the first time that Angel Investigations actually makes money for their services, so they're kind of like a little bit more of a legit business now. This is going in rewatch royalty above In the Dark for me. Stalkers scare me so much. Delusional stalkers scare me so much. His whole situation where his hands were creeping on the bed at one point when the girl was in it, following her around with his eyes. I was so creeped out, which means it did a great thing. Also, I'm just now realizing, literally, I remember, why did I not mention this? How did I miss it? It's so hard. This is another reason why I needed a script, because even with the script, I'm gonna miss smaller stuff, but I think I missed an actually huge moment. Didn't Angel literally murder Russell by pushing him out a window? So anyways, that happened, and that's when Wolfram and Hart kind of realized what a badass that Angel was. Episode 5. Room with a View, another great episode. Okay, this is our introduction to Dennis, who becomes Cordelia's ghost roommate. He's chill. We love Dennis. I also just want to say that, as a quick side note, there was something about like this first batch of episodes in season 1, I want to say around 1 through 10. The humor was so good. It was peak humor, and it's like still has its funny moments, but I was laughing so much, so often in the first batch of season 1 Angel episodes. The humor was so camp. Anyways, I loved Room with a View because it was just a classic haunted house plot with an interesting backstory, but also we do get a little glimpse into Doyle's past. Not exactly. We get a glimpse into the fact that he has a past that we will come to learn about. Cordelia is finally moving out of that roach-infested apartment of hers, and apparently Doyle knows a guy who can get her a nice apartment. They go and they check it out. It looks nice and suspiciously cheap, so you know it's haunted. Only when single women move in. We'll get to it. Not great news for Cordelia. Doyle isn't doing great in this episode either, because he's got some demons that are after him for money that he owes them, and we don't know why specifically with this situation. I don't think we ever learn it. But I was just happy to get something more centered on Doyle and a promise that we were going to expand on his character with this little subplot of the episode, because I wasn't very invested in Doyle at this point. It took me a while to become invested in him, because it's hard when we have Angel and Cordelia, who we already know. We understand their backstories, we understand who they are, and Doyle is a bit of a mystery that's going to take longer to get used to. It was nice that they planted some seeds here in this episode for him. And him and Angel had a really nice conversation about how Angel was like, I will help you get these guys off your back, but eventually you're going to have to tell me what has happened in your past. You got to tell me about you. And Doyle promises that he will. But as far as the apartment goes, it turns out that the first tenant, Maud, killed her son by tying him up to a chair and then building a whole ass brick wall around him in their own home. So leaving him in there to just starve to death, however he died. And then she immediately had a heart attack right after she sealed up the wall. So Dennis to the police is just missing, and Maud, this old lady, is just dead of a heart attack, and it's not really further investigated. But the reason that she killed her son the way that she did was because he had a fiance and he was going to be moving out to like live his life with his fiance, and she was like, you can't leave me. She's one of those moms. So now anytime a single woman moves into this apartment, Maud, the demon ghost, sees it as a threat, as someone who's trying to get with her son. Oh yeah, the episode got surprisingly emotional with Cordelia feeling like maybe she didn't deserve the apartment, and all these bad things that were happening was some sort of punishment for the person that she was in Sunnydale. She recognizes that she wasn't the nicest person, and it was really nice to see that side of her. Ghost Maud really gets in her head and like plays into those insecurities of hers, but Cordelia finds some newfound confidence in the end and expels the ghost herself, which was really great to see. It's not always Angel that's the hero. They tear down the wall where Dennis the son was trapped. His skeleton is still in there, but his soul is set free when they do that. But then, like, also he's not going anywhere. He decides he's going to stick around and he's going to be Cordelia's roommate. I'm so curious about why I wonder if his spirit is stuck in this place, or if he literally was like, you saved me, I'm gonna be your roommate now. Like, I'm gonna stay here. You're so nice, you know? This episode is 100% gonna go and rewatch Royalty. I'm gonna put it at the top. Oh yeah, and then when Cordelia was like going in on Maud, the ghost demon, the demons that were hunting down Doyle showed up at the same time. It was very chaotic, and I was having fun with it. Episode 6, Sense and Sensitivity. This is our first very Kate-centric episode. She's been sprinkled in throughout the episodes prior, but this is very much her as the main plot, and we do a lot of focusing in on her relationship with her dad in this one. Her dad is also an officer, but he's retiring. At work, Kate is painted as this woman who puts up a very strong front. She's kind of a bit of a hard ass at her job, but her vulnerability really shines through when it comes to wanting the approval of her father. Because of Kate's rough tactics in the interrogation room in this episode for a certain case, which I wasn't a fan of, and I was kind of pretty surprised by, the precinct is required to go through sensitivities training. Honestly, I was like, cool, not a bad idea, but the way that it's presented is very floofy. There's a feeling stick that's involved where when you pass it around, you are forced to talk about your feelings, and specifically just talk about your childhood trauma. It was crazy. But I can't be too hard on the sensitivity training in this episode because it was run by a demon. The demon was hired by Wolfram and Hart. The earlier framework of the episode included Kate trying to pin down a mob boss, Little Tony, who I thought was a child. I thought they were calling him Little Tony because he was a literal missing child, but he was a missing, like, mob boss that we were trying to track down. But thanks to Angel's help, she actually manages to capture him. Now he's locked up, but he's represented by Wolfram and Hart, who promised that they would be able to get him out. And at Kate's father's retirement party, the effects of that sensitivity training seem to really hit everyone, and everyone becomes drunk on their emotions. Chaos ensues, fights break out, and the officers are like, wait a minute, this so isn't fair that we lock up all these bad guys. They're people too. Let's set them free. And they do. In the midst of all this chaos, Angel tries to confront the sensitivity demon guy, but he becomes a victim of the effects with everyone else, which is pretty funny. It's very ironic because Cordelia was really getting on Angel's case about how he needs to be more considerate of other people's feelings. Be careful what you wish for, because sensitivity victim Angel was very interesting to watch. And since he's kind of out of it, it is up to Cordelia and Doyle to direct him to the climax of the episode, which takes place at the precinct where Kate has ended up aimlessly trying to find her father. And little Tony attempts to kill her out of revenge for putting him in jail. Sensitive Angel stops him, which is so funny because he's like being badass Angel, but also he's like, I really don't want to have to do this. Very entertaining stuff. It all works out in the end for us, not for little Tony, who calls Wolfram and Hart, and they let him know that they're not going to help him escape anymore because trying to kill Kate in front of multiple witnesses was not part of the deal. That looks too bad, so Wolfram and Hart are backing out on him. And then the heart of the episode, Kate and her relationship with her father. Well, it all ends with him being very dismissive toward her at the end, and she's still left feeling that heavy gap between them that she clearly really wants to close, but seems like there's nothing she can do about it. I have suspicions about Kate's character and what the arc was supposed to be with her. I could be wrong. This episode and how it all was laid out to us makes me think that maybe, yeah, we were originally going to go somewhere different with her character. Sense and Sensitivity is going to go at the bottom of 5 by 5 for me. I liked it, but I think as far as a first watch, I was getting a little bit too whiplashed and it was a little hard to follow. My brain was constantly playing catch up instead of just like falling into the plot and falling into the twists and turns. I was kind of like, wait, what? And I think it was setting up some good things that ended up not being used. In a way they were, but I feel like they could have been better utilized if they're going to continue with Kate's character. If they're not, that's a different story. Episode 7, The Bachelor Party. This is the funniest episode of the entire show, of any Buffyverse show, actually. This is also the episode where I finally fell in love with Doyle's character and felt truly attached to him for the first time and excited for all of his potential. Doyle has a wife. They're separated. She shows up in town. Her name's Harriet. She's getting married to this guy named, what's his name? Do I have it in here? Richard. She's getting married to this guy named Richard. She's like, hey, Doyle, I really need you to sign these divorce papers now. Apparently, Doyle and Harriet were together and they were in love. And then when he hit 21, his demon side showed. Like, he went a full 21 years thinking he was full human, I think. Must have been raised by humans. I don't know. I can't remember if it was specified. But yeah, it wasn't until he was 21 that his demon side showed, and it really, he thinks, freaked Harriet out and sent her running. What happened to him with Harriet really explains why he might have a lot of self-image issues, and specifically why he's so scared about telling Cordelia that he's half demon, because, you know, his wife ran out on him when she found out, so any girl might, you know, I think that's the way he's thinking. But the twist of the episode is not only that Harriet's fiance Richard is a demon, which is so funny when we find that, okay, this episode is so funny because when Doyle meets Richard, he seems like a nice guy, but he doesn't want to believe he's a nice guy. When you're meeting your ex's new person, you want to be like, something's probably wrong with him. And that's exactly the attitude that he takes on. And so he's like, oh, this is a bad guy. This is a bad situation. He's probably a demon. He probably is going to end up trying to kill her. So him and Angel decide to tail Richard and just keep an eye on him, see what he's all about. And it ends up with Angel following him to a whole scene in a kitchen where he's grabbing a knife and he's kind of like looking deviously at his fiance Harriet, and Angel attacks him thinking that he's about to attack Harriet, but he was like, no, I'm using this for food, why are you attacking me? So then they're like, oh, what? Harriet knows he's a demon. She knows Richard is a demon. And she's fine with it. He's one of the nice ones. Our bad, we thought he was evil. He is a demon, but he's not evil, we'll back off. This is a really hard thing for Doyle to face because obviously Harriet, he thought, ran out on him because he was a demon, but clearly not. Clearly it was just like they weren't compatible anymore, and that's kind of a harder thing to face. That wasn't the twist. He's a demon, yes, that wasn't the twist. The twist is, even though he says he's a good demon and we are leaving with our tails between our legs, we were right. He's not a good demon. He is actually a bad demon. He wants to eat Doyle's brains. There's this scene, this is the funniest scene in the whole Buffyverse show. There's this scene with Richard sitting down to eat some KFC with his little demon family, and they're talking about their preparations for his upcoming bachelor party, and they're like, oh my god, it's gonna be so fun. We're gonna have darts, we're gonna have strippers, we're gonna get to eat the brains of your fiance's ex-husband, and they're just so casual about it. It took me like a good 5 to 10 seconds where I was like, what was that? I'm sorry, what? But yeah, it's their tradition. It's in their demon culture to eat the brains of their fiance's ex-husband. I wonder if that's only if they have an ex-husband or if they have to marry someone who has an ex-husband. I'm curious about that facet of their culture. Anyways, by the end of the episode, Doyle almost does get his brains eaten, but Angel comes in the nick of time. Harriet finds out everything. She had no idea, of course, that this was part of the bachelor party ritual, and she leaves Richard. The wedding is off. Doyle and Cordelia have a really great moment in this episode too, where she admits that she thinks that he's a good guy. He's actually very touched by that, and he really needed it in this episode where he's grappling a lot of self-image issues and this whole emotional journey with his wife coming back into town, now ex-wife, you know. So it was nice to see that moment between them. I'm going to put this one at the top of rewatch royalty. It makes me want to eat KFC, and I will be eating KFC the next time I watch it. Episode 8, I Will Remember You. Oh boy. So it's important to note that this episode's coming off the back of a Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode where Angel goes to Sunnydale to aid Buffy with her little Thanksgiving monster of the week, except he manages to pull off all of the help without her realizing that he was even there. And now he's back in LA. The way that he knew that she was going to need help, by the way, the reason he went back to Sunnydale is because at the end of the bachelor party episode, Doyle gets a vision of Buffy. And, you know, his visions are always someone who needs help. So that's what Angel went and did. He helped. She just wasn't aware. So Buffy comes marching to LA because she's upset that Angel was going behind her back in Sunnydale. She wants to know when he's there. It's weird that he was like aiding her but avoiding her at the same time. She's not down for it. Buffy is in the middle of chewing him out for his Sunnydale escapades when they get attacked by a demon. During the fight, the demon manages to scratch into Angel's palm before Angel kills it. And almost immediately Angel becomes human. When that happens, him and Buffy are separated. So Buffy isn't aware that he's human. He's turned human right away. Angel is confused by this because he's like, this can't be possible. So he goes to the oracles to ask what's the catch, because he just is in disbelief. And they're like, boy, there's no catch except that if you're a human, Buffy is going to definitely die way sooner than she has to. And he's like, well, I don't want to be human and take years off of Buffy's life. Like, I don't need to be doing this. So he kind of makes a deal with the oracles that he will have his day as a human, but then when the 24 hours are up, only Angel's going to remember what happened and no one else will. So Angel and Buffy have 24 hours together as humans. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It's sad because we know it's not going to last. And when it's over, Angel tells Buffy what's going on and that she's about to forget everything. She's really emotional. She doesn't want it to end. Their time is up and she forgets. And you always like secretly want to be like, well, maybe she won't, but no, she does. I was very frustrated by this episode. I hate that nobody knows except Angel. I hate it so much, but I am going to put it in rewatch royalty at the bottom because I just think it's cool to be able to see what could have been. I do think that's cool. Like the giggles and just the lighthearted playfulness that they can have now that they don't have to worry about anything. It was nice to see. It's just heartbreaking. So like, I don't know. I'm sure it'll be a cool rewatch, but it's gonna devastate me every time. Speaking of devastating, episode 9, Hero. This episode made me cry in a way that I did not realize that I could for this show. I didn't know I was that invested in Doyle. But I think it's just the way that they framed the episode. Like, I would be a monster if I didn't cry. They like framed the episode with this Angel Investigations commercial that Doyle is filming, and he says some like really heartfelt things, and like they start the episode with him trying to film, and then in the end they look back at it and they see all the nice things he said about Angel Investigations. And I remember that for most of this episode I was really confused by the tone because it felt so big and so high stakes. Like we were really building up to something huge, but I was like, why does it feel like this? This is only episode 9. Like, chill. We're not even at a mid-season finale yet. In this episode, we are facing the Scourge, an army of pureblood demons who are trying to kill off any mixed demons whom they view as lesser. I saw an interesting comment on my Patreon about this, and I would love to bring it up and see what you guys have to say. Is this a continuity error? This idea of the Scourge being these pureblood demons? Apparently it was mentioned in Buffy's show that a pureblood demon is like ginormous, monster level. Like they're not the size of a human. So let me know what you think about that. But there's a huge group of innocent half-demons that are hiding out in LA, on the run from the Scourge. Doyle really identifies with them, being a half-demon himself. Angel, Doyle, and Cordelia decide that they need to help smuggle this group of demons onto a ship that's going to take them away to a safe island away from the Scourge. These half-demons view Angel as the promised one because apparently there was a prophecy that said that he would appear at the end of the century, this is 1999, and save them from the Scourge. So they're like, cool, our hero. The episode comes down to this climax where Angel, Doyle, and Cordelia have managed to all get these half-demons on the ship. Doyle admits to Cordelia that he is a half-demon, which had me so excited. She was just annoyed that he didn't tell her, but like she didn't have a bad reaction to the information at all. I knew she wouldn't. Unfortunately though, the whole ship situation, the Scourge is one step ahead of them. There is a light on the ship that the Scourge planted who will kill anyone with human blood. So all of these half-demons are in danger. And Cordelia, because she's human, but I need to ask, doesn't Angel not have any human blood? This is about to come to like Doyle sacrificing himself. But what if Angel destroyed the light? Wouldn't he have survived that? Because I thought he was like, he didn't have any human blood in him. So anyways, it's all a trap. The Scourge are storming the ship. They're also locking it up so like everyone's trapped inside and can't escape this light that is about to kill everyone. Doyle kisses Cordelia. There's a weird blue light that passes between them when it happens. And then he goes for the light, using all of his strength to disconnect the cable. The heroic act ends up killing him, but he destroys the light, saving everyone on board. Angel is also able to fight off the Scourge and, they're taken care of. And all the half-demons are saved. So it all made me very emotional, finding out that Doyle is the promised one. Usually Angel is the hero of these episodes. Doyle was the ultimate hero in this situation. He made the ultimate sacrifice. He also came to fully accept himself before doing so, which was very cool to see. You guys already know this one slayed. It's our first slay of the season. I won't be taking any feedback. Episode 10, Parting Gifts. Guess who is back to join the main cast? Mr. Wesley Wyndham Price, rogue demon hunter. A self-proclaimed empath demon named Barney thinks that he's being hunted by Wesley, who's like a biker now, referring to him as just a random motorcyclist, and he actually ends up coming to Angel Investigations for help, claiming that the guy's after him, but that he, the empath demon, is a good demon. You can see where this is all going. But for reasons explained in the episode, Angel's like, you probably deserved it. Angel's not even buying into this empath demon at first. Also, we find out that the blue glow kiss between Cordelia and Doyle was him passing his powers of his visions to Cordelia, which she's not happy about. She's not happy about it because they hurt. It feels like her skull is splitting open every time she has a vision. So she's like, no thank you. You didn't have to do that. So then she's like going around kissing people and trying to pass it on to someone else. So she tries to kiss Angel and she's like, what the hell? And then the first time she sees Wesley since the Buffy days, she just goes up to him and kisses him. And remember in Buffy when they kissed, there was like a zero chemistry. It was so awkward. It's not awkward anymore, which makes me think there's going to be a romance with them eventually. It doesn't bud really in this season. This season is just all about them being established as an Angel Investigations family. But I think they were trying to let us know with that kiss that there could be a romantic spark between them again. Anyways, Wesley comes to us. I can't remember how we ran into him. We find out that he was never after the empath demon, but he was tracking a different one entirely. Long story short, they find the other demon that he was originally tracking and realize that he was attacked by the empath demon, who is not an empath demon. He's actually a demon with the ability to steal other people's powers and strengths, which really hurt them in the process. And now, he stole like something from the demon that we found, and now his next target is Cordelia because he found out that she has those visions and he wants those. Side note, Wolfram and Hart are also featured in this episode at a demon auction where Barney is trying to bribe them into removing Cordelia's eyes for him. Overall, this one was about introducing Wesley into the fold, the growing pains of Cordelia getting used to those visions. I thought both were done really well. I was nervous for a split second when they introduced Wesley to us as our new character, taking Doyle's place. No one can take Doyle's place, but you understand what I mean, like he's taking that place in the main credits. I was a little nervous about it, because Wesley was not my favorite in Buffy. But once again, neither was Angel, and they proved me wrong. They fleshed him out so good, and I love Angel now in his show. And they did the same thing with Wesley. And I think it's because he's no longer working for the council, and he's really broken away and decided to like make his own rules and do what he thinks is right rather than the bidding of other people. That really helps his character out a lot. But he still has that nerdy charm about him. So yeah. Also, I just love that Cordelia ends up with Doyle's visions. It feels necessary because those visions were like such an important part of the formula of the show. Giving them to Cordelia is a fun way to keep it going. So this one is going to go at the top of 5x5. Just because I liked it, but the actual antagonist of the episode, the monster of the week side of the episode, wasn't my favorite. Episode 11, Somnambulist. Is that how I say that word? Somnambulist, which is a fancy word for sleepwalker. I learned that thanks to this episode. I loved this one. I am a sucker for flashbacks, which we get here. But not only do we get flashbacks, we get to meet someone from Angel's past. That's so cool. I didn't realize that that was possible, but of course. We get to meet someone that Angel turned into a vampire. And there's probably so many of them. Angel is having recurring nightmares where he is his soulless self killing a woman, wearing a metal finger claw. In the real world, Kate is investigating a serial killer who always leaves a cross clawed into their victims' faces. So given what's happening in the real world, Angel's concerned that he's blacking out at night and he's the one committing these murders. Maybe the nightmares are more than just nightmares. So Cordelia and Wesley chain him to his bed to see if there would be another attack that night, because if there's not, whoa, maybe this is you. If there is, it's someone else. So that night there is another attack, so they know it's not Angel. And Angel remembers a man named Penn that he turned into a vampire. Angel used to be the one to use this metal finger claw, but he taught Penn to draw like crosses in their victim's face and everything. So he's like, okay, if it's not me, it must be him. And he still just is killing people the same way he always has. Also, it's so interesting to me because there's a mention in this episode that because Penn is near, that's why Angel's having visions from Penn's point of view. Like there's some sort of connection between him because he's the one who turned him. And they call him his sire because he did that. And I'm just so intrigued by that concept and so excited about it, again considering how the season ends. Anyways, Angel and Kate are both hunting Penn down. Of course, Kate thinks that he is just a serial killer. She's still not aware of the paranormal world, but she does find out that Angel's a vampire in this episode. And as frustrating as it is, because of course I want her to understand that he has a soul and he's not like the others, she's scared of him and she doesn't know if she can trust him the same. Her entire perspective on the world gets flipped upside down here, and Angel has been hiding this from her the whole time, so that in itself is like, okay, you're capable of lying to me, that's going to make the trust go down and everything. In the climax of the episode, Angel, Kate, and Penn all end up fighting each other, and Kate is actually the one to kill Penn. It's a very badass move. She has the stake and she stabs it through Angel's chest and then does a double stab in the same swing through Penn's heart, killing Penn, but purposefully aiming so that she would only hurt Angel because she learned that, you have to stake him through the heart specifically. So she knew it would hurt. She wanted to hurt Angel, but then she went for the kill with Penn. Honestly, it was a badass moment. I loved this episode. There were also a lot of sweet moments throughout it between our three mains. I'm gonna put this one in Slade. Below Hero, but this one slayed. It revealed more of Angel's past. It taught me more lore of our universe that might come into use in the future. And it pushed the plot forward finally with Kate and made her realize, that this supernatural world exists. Okay, episode 12, Expecting. This is a weird one. but it is a memorable one. Cordelia, along with multiple other women, are being impregnated by a haxel beast through a group of finance bros. So she ends up sleeping with this supposedly nice guy that she's met out on the town, and then she wakes up 9 months pregnant the next morning. We also experience Dennis, the ghost roommate, in this episode again, who's clearly trying to warn her against sleeping with this guy, but we think he's just being like protective. But he was onto something. He knew there was some dark stuff going on. I loved the turning point in the episode where Cordelia started getting protective of her demon baby, and you could see like not only is she being turned into this demon surrogate, but it's going to her mind too, where she's like being drawn to the baby and drawn to the beast, ready to be the mother of this child. It's all very creepy. She ends up like getting called by the beast and walks straight to the ritual willingly, but Wesley and Angel come to the rescue in the end. Wesley's kind of officially accepted as like a member of the Angel Investigations family in this one, with Cordelia saying that she trusts them both with her life, which is like a big deal. It was really nice. This one's going at the top of 5x5. Don't judge me. Episode 13, She. I'm not going to talk about this one too much because I will tell you right now, this is the first one that's going to go in the something's missing category. I'll put it in there. We meet Jira, a princess from a different dimension, and I was so excited because I love the concept of multiple dimensions and I want us to explore that more in the Buffyverse. But I honestly thought with the way that this episode was set up that Jira would become a recurring character. So then when I never saw her again, I was like, oh, what was that about, you know? She is smuggling women from her dimension into our dimension because it's too dangerous for them to stay at their home. The source of their sexual desires and like sexual freedom are located in the ridges of their back. And back home, like the men are removing them, basically turning these women into like mindless sex robots for them in a way. They have a very strong effect on the men of our dimension, and in turn they feel very threatened by them, and they've killed a number of them, which Angel's like, that needs to stop. That's not okay. Like, I feel for your cause, but you also cannot just murder people. In the end, we find a safe haven in our world for these women, and Angel does warn them that if he finds out that they are killing humans, that he's going to find them and he's going to put a stop to it, which I took that as like, oh, we might be seeing them again, because he's like, I'm going to keep an eye on you, but again, we just don't see him anymore. Also, there's a lot of tension between Angel and Jira, which I thought was just because of like the nature of her allure and like her sexual nature and everything. But then in the last scene, her back ridge things glow, and that's like signifying that she is genuinely into him. So again, I thought we were setting up like maybe a complicated romantic story finally for Angel, because like I know that he probably will never entertain it, but I think it would just still be an interesting thing to entertain for the plot. Something's missing. But then we have episode 14, I've Got You Under My Skin. I love this one because it came down to a classic exorcism. And whenever they do a classic horror trope and then put like a Buffyverse twist on it, it's my favorite thing because I'm such a horror fan. The episode starts off with Cordelia making Wesley and Angel brownies, which I love because it just is like showing the relationship flourishing between them. They don't just come together to do Angel's investigation stuff. They come together to eat brownies now. There's a moment where Angel accidentally calls Wesley Doyle, and it's exactly what I needed from the show because losing Doyle was a big deal, and it's such a thing in TV where characters die and then the other characters move on too quickly. Like, we just move on and never mention them again. And I feel like they really had like a little bit of a family formed there between Doyle, Angel, and Cordelia. So a moment like that was really appreciated by me. This is an episode that takes off thanks to one of Cordelia's visions, and for a good chunk of the episode, it seems like we might be dealing with a family where the kids are being abused, specifically by their dad. I really thought that the supernatural element reveal was going to be that the dad was a demon, which seems so obvious, too obvious now. One night, when Angel's invited over to dinner with the family because he saved their son from getting hit by a car, so they were very grateful for him, specifically the mom. The dad is like kind of off. Like I said, he brings a batch of Cordelia's brownies, but they're actually special brownies. They have a special powder in them that causes the demon to be expelled out of the possession within the body and into like a physical manifestation. So they are thinking that the dad, I think at this point, is possessed by a demon. By the end of the episode, we do manage to get the demon out, not out of the dad, but out of the little boy. It's the little boy that's possessed. But we have a conversation with this demon, okay? And apparently this demon tells us, yeah, maybe he did try and possess this child, whatever. He possesses people, it's his thing. But he has been trying for years to get out of this boy's body because all that's inside there is darkness. Like something's wrong with that boy. The possession demon is not the reason that the boy is acting strange. It's the boy himself. There's just an emptiness in him, which is so interesting because basically what he's saying is, like, in human terms, this boy is a psychopath, but also vampires are soulless. So like in human terms, they're just psychopaths who drink blood. It's so interesting to me that vampires are soulless and humans are capable of being soulless. But anyways, they freak out because they're like, oh shoot, okay, so that family is still in danger. So yeah, the boy tries to burn down the house, almost killing his sister. You know, Angel saves the day as always, and the boy is taken in by social services. This one is another Slade for me. It's just my kind of episode. I'm gonna put it above Somnambulist. Episode 15, The Prodigal. Here we have another episode with Angel flashbacks, and you know how I feel about that. I also love that we got parallels in the messaging of the flashback storyline and the present day storyline. This is technically only our second Kate-centric episode where our main plot line is following her, but we've had so much, like I said, where she's sprinkled in throughout the whole show that it feels very natural. As far as the flashbacks go, we get to see exactly how Angel's turning into a vampire went, what Darla did, and how she did it. And then we see the murder spree that he went on, specifically with his family. His family was his first string of murders once he became a vampire. And within the family, specifically his dad, like he was really angry and spiteful. And Darla says an interesting thing in this episode. She's like, when she sees that he's murdered his family, she's like, oh, you did this already? Like, I'll teach you how to really murder people. This is too fast. And we know that Angel, or Angelus, is all about like taking his time and playing with his food, and just he's into the torture side of everything. And apparently it's very possible that it's Darla that taught him all of that, just like he taught Penn. As far as present day, it's established when Angel and Kate run into each other on the same case that she is not ready to continue this friendship with him because of everything that's happened. Over at the precinct, Kate's retired father is back and apparently just showing up to like check in on her, which she's kind of very hopeful about because that's not like him. Anyways, the case that brought Angel and Kate together for this episode involves a demon that was attacking people on the subway. It happened earlier on and Angel took care of it pretty quickly. The demon's all... Angel still does some research on it and realizes that that specific demon species is not violent. So he's like, what drove that demon to do what it did on the subway? Basically, one of his leads ends up leading him to Kate's father, who is apparently doing some shady things with some shady demons. Based on how it all goes down, it seems like Trevor, Kate's dad, is not one of them. He's not like actively a part of what the demons are doing, but he's just kind of accidentally gotten mixed up with them. And unfortunately, they catch up to him in the end. A pair of vampires. And even though Kate and Angel are hot on their tails, they kill Kate's dad. It's a big turning point in Angel and Kate's already fractured relationship. She really spirals from here, which makes, obviously a lot of sense. We've done a lot of setup about how much she cares for her father and how much she has been waiting for his validation, and now he's gone. On a first watch, this was honestly a big shock because I thought that the setup they were doing in the Sense and Sensitivity episode with her and her relationship with her father was just like setting up more of a psychology for Kate and a backstory for Kate that would give us more substance to her character that I've been waiting to become a bigger part of the show, but she's kind of just stayed in the background the whole time except for these 2 episodes. So then when they killed off her dad, I was like, oh, well, we're killing off a whole piece of her character right now. So were we gonna make her character more prevalent than it became at one point and then decided against it and was like, okay, well, we don't need her dad anymore. And actually, let's just fade her out of the Angel Investigations group by making her hate them because her dad gets killed by vampires, and then we'll just fade her out from there and we won't see her anymore. I feel like that's honestly possibly where it might go. Where I'm hoping it goes is that Kate turns into a villain and this is her villain origin story, which is very possible. It's very possible given like what goes on with her character in these last, 8 or so episodes of the show. I'm going to make a prediction right now that she might join Wolfram and Hart in the next season. She is really spiraling. Right now, I wasn't thinking these thoughts when I watched this episode. It was more in like the finale, I think, where I was like, she is really losing it and she might become a villain. And I would actually love if that were to happen. I think it would make some really interesting character arcs and entertainment. Anyways, back to this episode. Kate is screaming at Angel when she finds her father's dead body, and she says that there's nothing human about him, which is kind of what brings the parallels of the flashbacks into focus. Obviously, Kate is losing her father right now, and Angel killed his father. And despite that, I feel like because of everything he's done and now has to live with a soul, he feels more human emotions than she could ever understand. But like I said, she doesn't understand, and she's upset, she's grieving, and she's allowed to be upset and grieving. This one's actually going to go at the top of Slade. It made me cry. So, slay. Episode 16, The Ring. This was my least favorite episode of the season, but like the others, it's not like I thought it was objectively bad. It just wasn't my thing. I'm still gonna put it at the bottom of Something's Missing, even though I literally just said the phrase, not my thing, because there were also still moments throughout the episode that I did really like and appreciate, but just overall the concept of the episode, it's not for me. So basically the episode centered on a human-run underground fighting ring where demons were forced to fight each other for the purpose of betting and also just a general voyeuristic violence situation. I'm just not into action being at the forefront of an episode. I'm also not into like Fight Club situations unless it's literally the movie Fight Club, great movie. There's just something about fight scenes where I'm just not, 9 times out of 10, it's just not that interesting to me. But there was a fun twist in this episode. The person that comes to Angel Investigations for help about his missing brother at the beginning of the episode turns out to be the guy that is running the ring with his brother that was never missing. The reason he went to Angel and made up this story was because they wanted to get Angel in the ring and basically just lure them to this location to get him in there. And they succeed at doing that. All of these demons are like trapped by this bracelet that they have to wear, and then there's this boundary where they can't go past this certain point, otherwise they'll disintegrate into nothing. So yeah, Angel ends up getting lured and stuck in this demon fighting ring. It's hard to say which demons are good versus bad because they're kind of all brought down to the same level amongst each other when they're in this situation. And when Angel's forced to fight, he ends up killing his opponent, which like I understand it's out of self-defense and he shouldn't be torn up about it, but given who Angel is, I was expecting him to be more torn up about it. Like I thought him killing that demon would linger with him through several episodes because we don't know if that was like an innocent demon or a bad demon. What if he just killed an innocent demon? I feel like to Angel that would be a big deal, but we kind of just moved on from it after like a couple scenes. The other twist of the episode was us realizing how evil the main guy is who runs the ring, because at one point Angel manages to get his hands on the main guy's brother and is like, I'm gonna kill him if you don't let us go. And he's like, and the main guy's like, I'll just kill him, and kills his own brother. I think my jaw dropped for that one. There was a nice touch at the end of the episode where we got some poetic justice though. I love a bit of poetic justice. All of the ring demons rise up together, take down the establishment, they do their thing. And then they were able to get one of their own bracelets on the ringleader, and he ended up getting pushed into the boundary and disintegrating. So that was nice to see. Also, an important mention, Wolfram and Hart pops up again in this episode. And I think this is the first episode where I really perceived Lila as like an individual person that works for Wolfram and Hart. She was trying to make a deal with Angel at one point to get him out of the ring as long as he kept quiet about the ring and didn't try to like bring it down and everything. And he was like, I'm gonna bring it down. I'll go back to the ring. I'm not making a deal with you. That was that episode. Some interesting moments. Episode 17, Eternity. I loved this episode. I think this is the second time in the Buffyverse where we see someone who is not a vampire who romanticizes the idea of being one and like wants to become one. The first time being in a random Buffy episode where there was like a whole vampire cult that was worshiping vampires, and it involved like Buffy's childhood friend who was dying and wanted to become a vampire. You remember that episode? That was a great episode of Buffy. Anyways, this time we do get a little bit more psychology behind the reasons as to why this specific person, an actress named Rebecca, wants to become a vampire. We meet her because Angel saves her from being hit by a car, which I realized when I typed out the script that that's the second time he did that in this season. Go Angel. But in the case of the possessed psycho child from I've Got You Under My Skin, it was like the kid wandering out into the street. And in this episode, it seemed like the car was like purposefully targeting Rebecca and trying to murder her. So Rebecca is really taken in by Angel because, you know, he saved her life, but also because she's so famous and he doesn't even know who she is. It's very much like it's a classic celebrity love story trope where like the celebrity is just enamored by a person who doesn't recognize them. But she ends up going to Angel Investigations for help with her stalker. Lots of stalkers in this first season as well. You know how I feel about the stalker cases. They creep me out. They always successfully freak me out, so I enjoy that. But surprise, surprise, we have a fun little twist. It turns out that she doesn't really have a legit stalker. Actually, her agent has been hiring someone to do all these stalker things, including shooting at her and Angel in a dark alley, which granted they were blanks, but still it was really intense. And she finds out that it was her agent setting up all the stalker stuff because apparently he thought that having her name in the headlines would help her get this role that she was auditioning for. She doesn't get the role, and that's when he like tells her that it was him that was setting up all the stalker stuff and that it would stop now. But she's really torn apart by not getting this role, and I think she's only like 22 or 23, something like that in this episode, but she's already feeling like she's got one leg out the door in Hollywood. She's getting too old for the parts that everybody wants, all the pretty girls want. She finds out that Angel's a vampire, and she's like, well, if I'm a vampire, I get eternal youth, so I'm gonna do that. So she ends up going to Angel's apartment, and they have like wine together, which is not weird because there's like a romantic tension between them that was set up from the start. And she drugs his wine because she's gonna try to convince him to turn her. But it doesn't have the effect on him that she was expecting. Actually, the euphoric state that Angel is put into because of the effects of the drug, it tricks his like mind into thinking that he's achieved true happiness, and it turns him into Angelus. Not literally, his soul isn't literally gone, it's a mind trick. He's acting like he's Angelus again, but it's genuinely scary because he's like trying to hurt this woman, trying to kill this woman, but I loved it. I loved it. I love Angelus, not because he's a good guy. He's terrifying, but just because of the way that David plays him, I feel like he's very Jim Carrey meets the Joker. I don't know. He's so entertaining as Angelus, so I was just thoroughly enjoying myself for that entire chunk of the episode where he was just off the walls crazy. Eventually, Cordelia and Wesley do show up to help the situation. There's a really heartbreaking moment where Angelus says really awful things to them. He tells Cordelia like that she's just an extremely bad actress and is never going to make it, which is a big deal. Throughout the entire season, Cordelia has still been trying to make it in Hollywood as an actress. And then he tells Wesley that he's basically like a lame kid with daddy issues who's never going to feel good enough for anyone, which is so intense compared to the bad acting comment, which is also very mean because like that's Cordelia's hopes and dreams right there. But I don't know, Wesley's really cut deep. Anyways, so that was really awkward. They end up like knocking him out, tying him to the bed. He wakes up in the morning all better. He apologizes for what he said, and that's nice to have that moment. I feel like in a way, this situation brought them all together, and Rebecca pieces out. We don't see her again. This episode slayed. I'm going to put it above Somnambulist, but below I've Got You Under My Skin. Which brings us to episode 18, 5x5. Spoiler alert, this, ironically, is not going in the 5x5 category. I feel like I don't even need to say anything about this one, but you know I wrote some run-on sentences in my script for this. Over on Buffy, Faith woke up from her coma, wreaked some havoc, and now she ran away to LA. She didn't even know that Angel was here. She didn't come for Angel. I think she's just trying to like continually outrun herself, outrun her demons. She's in a bubble of denial. And Wolfram and Hart become aware that there's a vampire slayer in town. So they're like, oh, perfect. This Angel guy has been pissing us off all season. We need a vampire slayer to kill this man. So they end up having a conversation with Faith. They're gonna pay her off to kill Angel. She was like, oh shoot, Angel. But she agrees. And off she goes. This episode has got to be Eliza's best acted performance episode in all of the Buffy stuff, because I could tell from very early on through the little things and what she was saying and how she was acting that she might look like she's trying her best to kill Angel. She wasn't going to do it. What she saw was an opportunity for Angel to kill her. And that's what she was trying to goad him into this entire episode. There's so much guilt built up inside her. She has dug herself in a hole so deep that she just doesn't think it's possible to dig herself out at this point. The regret and the grief over everything that she's done would be so overwhelming. And nobody can understand that better than Angel, times a million. Everything that Angel did when he was soulless, and then all of that coming crashing down on him when his soul was returned and he had to face that. Faith has basically decided to become soulless. She decided to turn off emotion to cope with the bad things that she did. Angel is proof that you can come out of that and you can cultivate a path of redemption for yourself if that is what you want to do, if you want to accept that responsibility. Oh my god. We also get flashbacks in this episode, which kill me. You're joking. How could it get better? We get the flashbacks of Angelus getting his soul returned through the curse, and all of that self-hatred, grief, regret that he has to deal with now coming and crashing in on him in that moment. And like I said, for all the reasons that makes Angel perfect to be able to help Faith, it's so cool that they literally showed us those reasons, showed us that flashback in this episode to parallel with what Faith is going through and give hope for what Faith is going through. It boils down to a confrontation between Angel and Faith at the end of the episode in the rain. It clicks with him that she doesn't really want to kill him. She wants to be killed, but he refuses to do it, and he hugs her as she has this breakdown. And even better, she lets him hug her, and we know that she has finally cracked and might be willing to start accepting some responsibility for what she's done. This is obviously going at the top of Slade. It's so good. Whether you are a fan of Faith or not, it's just such a good episode and it's so well done. And the complicated feelings that Faith is having is so interesting to see play out because they've spent such a good amount of time on them. And then Sanctuary, episode 19, which is our part 2 to episode 18. Angel is taking care of Faith and being very delicate with her because he understands that she is very much a flight risk and this is a big deal, her wanting to get better, and it could save a lot of people for her to decide to take that path instead of keep going down, down, down. Wesley's not here for it. He's not here for the babying of Faith because in the last episode she tortured him very brutally. Cordelia also isn't here for it. She's like, I'm gonna go on vacation, which is hilarious, actually. She actually goes on vacation. She's like, I'm leaving. If Faith is here, I'm not. Wolfram and Hart is pissed off that the person that they hired to literally kill Angel is now his little roomie. So they decide to hire a demon to kill him now because they're like, what more can we do? We need to hire a legit demon, not a vampire slayer. Apparently that's not good enough. The demon attacks Angel and Faith, who fight it off together, and then they are hugging after they beat the demon, and Buffy walks in and witnesses this, and it's very jarring for her. She obviously hates Faith, as she should. Honestly, all the shit that Faith has put Buffy through, as she should. So she's upset walking in on this. She's like, what the hell? You're helping her? You're like, what is this? What's happening here? And honestly, Angel was so bad at explaining everything. Well, he didn't even try to explain. He was just like, yeah, what about he wasn't, apparently he was trying to be respectful toward Faith's privacy, but it's Buffy, come on. Buffy isn't the only one who wants Faith to pay for what she has done. The council is showing up. They're still trying to track this girl down. They're in full swing trying to get their hands on her, and they actually go to Wesley because they know that he has connections and he could help them. And they ask him to help capture Faith. And honestly, after what she put him through in the last episode, there would be no shame in him being like, yeah, okay. But he makes it clear that because of his loyalty to Angel and knowing that Angel wouldn't want that, he decides to not help them, but instead warn Angel and Buffy and Faith that the council are on their way. And they're on their way in a helicopter. Buffy and Faith end up on the roof. The helicopter is pretty close, but Angel saves the day as he always does. And in the midst of everything, Faith gets away. And Buffy's pissed off because she's like, great, now she's run away. Who knows what she's going to do next? Kate shows up at the worst timing possible and is aware of the fact that Angel is harboring a fugitive in Faith and is like, you need to give me information on Faith, otherwise I'm going to arrest you. She actually, I think, like technically does, because she takes him into the what do you call it, the station. When they walk in, Faith is already there and she has turned herself in. And that is officially her way of taking responsibility and paying the consequences of her actions. I do wonder if we're ever going to see her again. If we do, it's probably not going to be for a long time, because she's going to be in there a long time. Honestly, we probably will never see her again. I wouldn't be surprised if she's just going to, canon-wise, she's just sitting in that jail for the rest of the Buffyverse series. This one's another sleigh. It's going to go just below Hero for me. Also, I'm looking at this and I think I have to bring the Prodigal down here. I think I gotta bring it down there. I really like that episode, but I just can't. It needs to go down. Okay, episode 20, Warzone. So, I don't know if it's because it's following two of some of the greatest episodes of the season, but this one just didn't hit for me. However, that might change pretty majorly on a rewatch now that I know that Gunn and his crew are actually recurring in the show. I hope they continue to appear in season 2. We were introduced to the character Gunn in this episode. He had a badass entrance too. Like, there were a bunch of vampires that were getting lured to be killed, and we think that it's Angel doing this, but then they pan up and it's this new guy and his name's Gunn, and we're like, okay. Gunn has this whole crew behind them. They've clearly like been out here fighting some vampires on the streets of LA for some time because they have a whole process to how they do things. They've got tanks, they've got like special weapons, and they have specific ways to lure vampires. Like, they've been doing it. So it was cool to get a glimpse into a whole nother world in the nightlife of LA, the supernatural nightlife of LA. The setting of LA feels like a character in and of itself, and so it's really cool to get more depth to it when we zone in on situations like this. It just makes everything feel more real. I appreciate that so much. But focusing in on this group of vampire hunters in the way that it did felt like a little bit disjointed to me, because I was like, okay, I don't care about this group of people the same way that I care about Angel, Cordelia, and Wesley, but you're like setting things up to make me think that I should. And maybe it's because I didn't realize they were going to be recurring characters. I don't know. I have to be honest about what my first watch experience was for this, even though I'm pretty certain on the rewatch it's going to change now that I understand that the setup wasn't for nothing. But over at Angel Investigations, a Hollywood billionaire, David Nabbit, is coming to them for help because he's been frequenting a demon brothel, and apparently someone took some pictures of him as blackmail, and he's like, you gotta go find this guy and get those pictures away from them, otherwise my career is ruined. And so Angel does find the guy with the pictures and like threatens him, puts on his vampire face and threatens him. And Gunn happens to see this from a distance, and it just looks like Angel's a bad guy. So they're like, oh, we got to keep an eye on this vampire. Who's this vampire? Eventually, when Angel handles the whole picture situation, which is like just a little bit insignificant to what really matters in this episode, he ends up killing a demon, and then Gunn and his people ambush Angel, and they like try to kill him, but like, LOL, you're not going to. And there's a lot of back and forth throughout this episode where Angel's trying to get them to understand that he can help them and he's not a bad guy. Unfortunately, Gunn's sister Alana gets turned into a vampire. She almost turns him, but then Angel shows up and prevents that from happening, and then kills off like the lead vampire who turned Alana, or at least was the one to order the turning of Alana. So then, because of that, Gunn and his crew kind of like, it's like a shake hands peace treaty, we get it, we will be civil moment. It's even runs a little bit deeper than that, because Angel and Gunn have a conversation at the end of the episode, and he's like, if you ever need help, and Gunn's like, I'm fine. And Angel's like, I know you are, but I might need help. And I think Gunn really appreciated that, because he's like a younger kid. I'd wonder how old he is. I'd probably guess 18, 19. Angel just treats him like an adult who can handle themselves, though. He recognizes that he's been through a lot. And I think he just really appreciated it when Angel was like, I might be the one who needs some help, it's not just going to be going one way here. And even when he said that, I was like, I'm never gonna see him again because I'm just so used to the show not having recurring characters outside of Kate and Wolfram and Hart, the villain. Yeah, it was a nice surprise in the next episode when Gunn showed up again. But anyways, I am gonna put this one in Something's Missing because upon my first watch, I wasn't super invested. All the setup and the focus on the group was just like confusing to me on my first watch and disjointed from the characters that I've grown to love and am more connected to. I think I'm gonna put this one at the top of Something's Missing. Episode 21, Blind Date. This is technically a part 1 to our 2-part finale. So this is a good episode. It does a lot of good things to set up for the next episode. When I tell you at this point in the season, I was so over Wolfram and Hart as the villain. I thought they were so lame. They seemed pathetic. I wasn't scared of them anymore. They're just a bunch of humans hiring a bunch of incapable supernatural things to try and get rid of the person that has been like nagging them throughout the season. And I'm like, come on, do something for yourselves. Like, stop hiring the help. I just found them to be pretty lackluster, but I'm also a sucker for psychology, so when Lindsay, an associate at Wolfram and Hart, was like, I don't know if my beliefs align with this company, and he wanted to get out, I was like, oh no, this is interesting though. But then by the end of the episode, I was disappointed again. But don't worry, when I saw the finale, all of these things like changed for me, and I'm very excited about Wolfram and Hart now. But as for this episode, I wasn't really interested in the whole blind woman trying to kidnap the children subplot. Like, that part just was not interesting to me because the rest of it was so interesting to me. But I understand that we needed that subplot as the catalyst for Lindsay to want to leave because Wolfram and Hart were representing this blind demon woman. And once Lindsay found out that she was trying to like hurt children, that's where he drew his line. His moral compass suddenly started spinning. He wants to leave Wolfram and Hart, but obviously there's a culty element to the place because he doesn't feel like he can just quit. He's probably worried for his safety because he knows what they're capable of, and he would be looked at as a traitor. So he goes to Angel for help, which is a wild move. But he does. He goes to Angel for help. He tells him his story about how he doesn't want to work with them anymore, and he wants help getting out. And Angel is just like, not really buying it. He's like, okay, if you really want to turn your back on this establishment, you need to go in there and steal some information for me so that will help me bring them down. Then I'll believe you and I will help you. And he's like, okay, I will. It turns into a whole operation with the help of Gunn. I was so excited to see him again. As a distraction in the lobby, Gunn's like acting crazy in the lobby to form the diversion. And then Lindsay aids Angel into getting into this top secret vault room in the building. And Angel is successful at stealing some information on like these discs. But then also in the vault room, he sees these scrolls and he's really drawn to them for zero reason. I was so frustrated in the moment when he goes up to them and he takes them. And this whole like alarm goes off because clearly they're a really important item. I was so frustrated. I was like, what are you doing? Why are you taking those scrolls? But apparently it's because he was like, his soul was literally drawn to them and he just couldn't help himself. And they are prophecy scrolls and he is in them. Whew, it's getting good. When he takes those prophecy scrolls to Wesley, Wesley immediately is like, okay, cool. These are in a different language. I'm going to start translating. Meanwhile, Lindsay's boss finds out that Lindsay was helping Angel and that he wants to leave Wolfram and Hart and then manipulates him into not only staying, but receiving a promotion for his bold actions. And I was just like, we went through all that. Like, I really thought Lindsay was going to become an interesting character who like breaks out of the Wolfram and Hart mold. But no, he tries to do that at the beginning. And then by the end, he's like, actually, I'm going to stay. And I'm gonna take up this nice office with floor-to-ceiling windows. I wonder if people know what they're getting into when they join Wolfram and Hart, or if they're genuinely just law people that are suddenly exposed to the supernatural world and are like, what the hell are we doing? But like, I understand that there's like a big cult element and it's a hard thing for his safety. But if you really wanted to leave them, you could get that strength and Angel could help you. You could do it. But he was lured in with the office, so like, come on, man. I'm going to put this one in 5x5. Between Lonely Hearts and Parting Gifts. Because it left me so frustrated in the end. I didn't care about the time that we had to spend on the blind demon subplot. Even though I understood that it was necessary for the storytelling, I was frustrated with Lindsay's whole moral journey and then turning back on it. I was also frustrated that we found this prophecy with Angel in it, and they were like, oh, I wonder what it says. And then they just left me hanging with that, which, like, I was really hoping that they would let me know what that was about in the next episode, and they do, thank God. But as for this one, I was like, what do you mean you're just going to drop that information on me and then just leave it and not explain? So I was just really wound up at the end of this episode, which, I mean, maybe it did its job right then. I don't know, but I liked it, you know. And then we have, oh my God, I'm feeling lightheaded. I've been talking too much. I don't breathe when I talk. I need to work on that. To Shanshu in LA. We start the episode with Wesley translating a piece of Angel's prophecy, which is so exciting. I was like, thank God we're talking about this prophecy. But all he can translate is the word death. And then we're all like, oh, cool, so Angel's gonna die. Not promising. Over at Wolfram and Hart, they are building up to performing a ritual that will apparently aid them in the takedown of Angel in some way. It's all very vague, okay? But they need those prophecy scrolls to complete the ritual. So they hire a demon to help them out and go get those scrolls. He ends up going to the oracles for some answers, but then he doesn't get them, so he just kills them. And like I told you, I was shocked because I thought those were the powers that be. They're not. Cordelia gets cursed by this demon to have nonstop visions, which puts her in a never-ending intense pain, and she ends up in the hospital. The demon goes and successfully steals the prophecy scrolls from the apartment and like leaves a bomb there so that when Wesley gets home, he almost blows up. He ends up in the hospital. So Angel's scrambling because his two people are in the hospital. He's supposed to be dealing with the Wolfram and Hart stuff, and he's aware of the fact that the scrolls are now missing. And obviously hurting the friends was like a distraction that they needed to complete this ritual, so he calls up Gunn again. Gunn comes in so clutch in these last two episodes. And he's like, hey, I need to go deal with some Wolfram and Hart stuff. Will you stay at the hospital and guard my friends to make sure that no one tries to come and attack them? And he does that. So then we are free to go and figure out what the hell is going on with this ritual. And as much as Angel tries to stop the Wolfram and Hart ritual from happening, even managing to chop off Lindsay's hand, which I'm actually really happy about because that's going to light a fire under Lindsay's ass to be possibly an incredible villain going forward, because now it's personal. Now he's got a personal vendetta against Angel, and I think that's going to be fun. With the ritual complete and the demon dead thanks to Angel, Cordelia's visions finally stop, and Wesley, Cordelia, and Angel return home, where Wesley realizes that he actually translated the prophecy incorrectly before. Yes, it did mention death, but it was talking about death in the mortal sense, insinuating that Angel is actually destined to become human, which is a huge deal. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot when I think about how the series is going to end, because I'm like, this is such a sad fate that Angel's subjected to. How are they going to end the show? Like, there's no way to give it a happy ending. But now with this knowledge, it's like, maybe there could be. And that's really nice to hear. Apparently, he is destined to become human once he like fulfills his purpose as a good vampire who can fight evil. Then we are quickly brought from that high of like happiness and excitement to an oh shit moment when we go back to Wolfram and Hart to see what this ritual was all about. They have somehow brought Darla, Angel's sire, back from the dead, and she is the key to bringing him down. I'm so excited for season 2 now. And this was the moment where I was like, okay, Wolfram and Hart, you're playing in the big leagues now. Finally, you stepped up, and I'm really excited to see them continue on, hopefully as a good antagonist. This is gonna go in Slade, right under Sanctuary. What an incredible ending to the season. I love cliffhangers like that. I'm so excited. Okay, so that's it. The entire first season of Angel, not a single episode was not my thing. A few where something was missing. A good chunk were good. A good chunk were rewatch royalty. And a surprising amount were top of the top Slade. So yeah, that was my experience watching season 1 of Angel. That is where my rankings fall. I just talked for 2 hours and 16 minutes, which is actually amazing to me. Like, if I didn't write this script, Oh, this would have been a nightmare. I would have been all over the place. I would have been filming for like 6 hours trying to remember every little thing I wanted to say. But yeah, no, that's that. Let me know if you enjoyed this style of video. If you would want me to do more in-depth recaps of the TV that I watch on my own. And yeah, now that I have got this done, I will be starting the next seasons of Buffy and Angel very soon, and I hope to see you there.